Perfeito! Aqui está em cópia e cola. Usei o texto original enviado por você como base e ajustei para um roteiro espacial em inglês com tom calmo, narrativo e forte para público americano, britânico. Text title: The Universe is Too Quiet, The Fermi Paradox and the Great Filter. Script: adjusted for a calm Space Channel audience in the US and UK. Imagine yourself lying somewhere quiet, somewhere far from the orange glow of any city, with your back against the cool earth and your eyes open, to a sky so full of stars that it seems almost impossible. The air is still. There is no wind tonight, no sound except your own slow breathing, in and out, in and out, the only rhythm in an otherwise silent world. Above you, thousands of points of light hang motionless, as if someone had scattered handfuls of diamond dust across a sheet of black velvet and simply left them there, frozen, glittering, waiting. You let your eyes drift, unfocused, the way they do right before sleep takes you. And in that soft, blurred vision, the stars seem to multiply, doubling and tripling until the whole sky feels like a single breathing organism, a living tapestry of light stretching out in every direction, farther than your mind can really hold. Somewhere up there, among all those scattered points, are stars very much like our own sun. Around many of those stars, worlds spin slowly in the dark, just as our world spins beneath you now. And here is the strange thought that will carry us gently through. Tonight, a thought so large it almost loops back into something small and comforting once you sit with it for a while. With so many stars, and so many worlds, and so much time for life to begin and grow and wonder about itself the way you are wondering right now, why does the sky feel so quiet? Why, when you stare upward into that ocean of light, does nothing ever stare back? Too much silence for so vast a sky. Before we go further into the dark and the quiet, let me ask something small of you. Something that takes only a moment of the part of your mind that is still awake. If you find a kind of comfort in these long, slow nights under imagined stars, in these unhurried wanderings through the biggest questions the universe has to offer, you might like to leave this channel a small mark of that, a like, perhaps, or a quiet subscription, so that future nights like this one can find you more easily when you need them. There. That is the only thing I will ask of you tonight. Now let your shoulders drop a little further into whatever is holding you, and let's keep going, because here is where the story really begins. Decades ago now, in the middle of an ordinary afternoon that had nothing to do with stars at all, a physicist named Enrico Fermi was sitting at lunch with some colleagues, the kind of casual lunch where conversation wanders the way your thoughts are wandering now, touching one subject and then drifting to another without much plan. They had been talking, lightly, almost as a joke, about flying saucers, about the possibility of life out among the stars. And then, in the middle of all that easy laughter, Fermi paused and asked a question so simple that it has haunted scientists ever since. Where is everybody? Think about how strange that question really is, once you let it settle. It was not asked in fear. It was not asked as a warning. It was asked the way you might ask where a friend has gotten to at a party that should have been full of people by now. The universe is old, Fermi was thinking, unimaginably old, far older than anything you and I can really picture even with our eyes closed. It is also unimaginably vast, filled with hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy alone, and beyond our galaxy, hundreds of billions more galaxies, each one holding its own hundreds of billions of stars. So many chances, so many worlds, so much time. And yet, when we look up, when we listen with our largest telescopes and our most sensitive instruments, what do we hear? Nothing. Only the soft static of an empty radio dial, only the silence of a universe that should, by every reasonable guess, be humming with life and conversation. Too much silence for so vast a sky. Let your mind hold that picture for a moment, the picture of a party that should be full but isn't. Imagine a great hall, larger than any hall you have ever stood inside, with room enough for 1,000 guests. The lights are warm, the tables are set, the music is ready to play. And yet, when you walk through the doors, you find the room almost completely empty, your own footsteps the only sound echoing off the high ceiling. That uneasy stillness, that confusion of where is everyone, that is the feeling scientists call the Fermi paradox, and it is the gentle, strange thread we are going to follow together tonight, deeper and deeper, the way a single thread might lead you through a long, quiet house in the dark. To understand why this silence is so strange, you first have to understand just how much room the universe really has for life to begin. Picture our own galaxy, the Milky Way, as a single beach, an enormous beach that curves out of sight in every direction. Now imagine that every star in our galaxy, every one of those hundreds of billions of suns, is represented by a single grain of sand on that beach. You would need a beach so long that you could walk along it for years and never reach the end. Grain after grain after grain, more than you could count if you spent your whole life counting. That is how many stars are out there, just in our one corner of the universe, just in our one galaxy among hundreds of billions of others. Now, scientists who study these things, people who have spent careers staring at distant points of light, tell us that a great many of those stars have planets orbiting them, the way our sun has planets orbiting it. Some of those planets sit at just the right distance from their stars, not too close, not too far, in a gentle band sometimes called the habitable zone, where liquid water could exist on a rocky surface without freezing solid or boiling away into vapor. Think of it like the temperature of a bath drawn just right, not so hot it scalds you, not so cold it makes you shiver, but exactly warm enough to sink into and stay a while. Many, many worlds across that vast beach of stars sit in exactly that kind of gentle warmth. And water, as far as we understand life, seems to be one of the most important ingredients of all. Wherever we find liquid water here on Earth, even in the most unlikely, harshest places, deep in lightless ocean trenches, inside solid rock far underground, in boiling volcanic springs, we tend to find life clinging there, stubborn and patient, finding a way to exist. So if water is common and warmth is common, and the raw chemical ingredients of life, the carbon, the hydrogen, the simple building blocks, are scattered generously throughout the universe, then the question becomes almost mathematical in its simplicity. With so many grains of sand on that endless beach, surely some of them, a great many of them, should have given rise to life, and given enough time, some of that life should have grown complicated, curious, technological, perhaps even reaching for the stars the way we are reaching tonight, lying here in the dark, looking up. This is the heart of what makes the silence so strange. It is not that life seems unlikely. By the numbers, by the sheer scale of the universe, life seems almost unavoidable. And yet here we are, alone as far as we can tell, the only voices in an ocean of quiet, too much silence for so vast a sky. Let that phrase settle into you now, soft as a held breath, because we are going to return to it again and again tonight, turning it over like a smooth stone, looking at it from different angles in the dark. There is a way of thinking about this that some scientists use, a kind of gentle recipe for guessing how many other voices might be out there among the stars. It is called the Drake equation, named after the astronomer who first wrote it down, and you do not need to understand any of the mathematics to feel what it is really asking. Think of it like a very old, very patient recipe for baking bread, a recipe with several ingredients listed one after another. How many stars form? How many of those stars have planets? How many of those planets could support life? How often life actually begins on a suitable planet? How often that life becomes intelligent? How often that intelligence develops the kind of technology that could reach across the dark to us? And how long? Once such technology exists, a civilization tends to survive and keep broadcasting its presence into the void. Each one of those ingredients is uncertain, a pinch of guesswork added to a pinch of hope, and depending on how generous or how cautious you are with each measurement, you can end up with wildly different answers. Some calculations suggest there should be thousands of other civilizations scattered through our galaxy alone, perhaps even millions across the wider universe. Other calculations, more cautious with their ingredients, suggest we might be rare indeed, perhaps even alone. But here is the gentle, important thing to understand, the thing that should ease your mind a little even as it deepens the mystery. Even the most cautious, most pessimistic versions of this recipe still tend to predict that life should exist somewhere else at some point, among all those countless grains of sand on that endless beach. The expectation, by almost every reasonable measure, leans toward company. And yet the silence remains. Too much silence for so vast a sky. So scientists, being curious, patient people, the kind of people who enjoy sitting with a hard question rather than rushing past it, began to ask themselves not just where is everybody, but why? Why, given everything we understand about the size and the age and the apparent generosity of the universe, does it seem so empty? And out of that long, careful questioning came many possible answers. Dozens of them, really. Each one a different way of looking at the same dark sky. Each one offering a slightly different shape to the silence. One gentle possibility is simply that we have not been listening long enough, or in the right way. Imagine standing on a vast, dark plain at night, holding a single small flashlight and trying to find another person somewhere out there in the blackness by sweeping your thin beam of light back and forth, hoping it happens to land on them at exactly the right moment, while they happen to be looking back in your direction. Our search for other civilizations has, in many ways, been like that. We have only been listening with truly sensitive instruments for a handful of decades, a tiny sliver of time compared to the billions of years the universe has existed. Perhaps the silence is not a sign of absence at all, but simply a sign that two flashlight beams in an enormous dark field have not yet happened to cross. There is something almost comforting in that thought, isn't there? The idea that the universe might simply be too large, too vast, too unimaginably spread out for two small points of light to find each other easily, even when both are searching. Picture two ships on a foggy sea at night, each one carrying a single lantern, each one hoping to see the other's light glimmering somewhere out, across the water. The ocean is so wide and the fog so thick that even two ships sailing the same waters might pass each other 1,000 times without ever seeing the other's glow. Perhaps that is all this silence really is. Not an empty ocean, just a foggy one, with lanterns out there somewhere that we simply have not yet glimpsed. But sit with this thought a little longer, and a heavier question begins to surface beneath the comforting one. The way a deeper current sometimes moves beneath a calm surface of water. Because if civilizations were truly common, if that recipe we spoke of earlier really did produce thousands or millions of intelligent species scattered through the galaxy, then surely, given enough time, at least one of them would have found a way to spread outward, to expand, to fill the available space the way a drop of ink slowly spreads through still water until it has colored the entire glass, even traveling slowly, even taking many thousands of years between each. New star system, a sufficiently old and persistent civilization would, mathematically, have had more than enough time to spread across the entire galaxy many times over by now. And yet, here we are. No ink in the water, no footprints on the beach besides our own. Too much silence for so vast a sky? This is where the question begins to deepen into something the rest of our time together tonight will gently explore, something scientists have come to call the Great Filter. It is not a single idea, so much as a quiet, unsettling shape that the silence seems to take once you look at it closely enough. The thought goes something like this. If the universe truly is full of opportunity for life, full of warm worlds and water and the raw chemistry needed for biology to begin, and yet the universe remains quiet, then somewhere along the long road from simple chemistry to a civilization capable of reaching the stars, something is stopping almost everyone from finishing the journey. Some barrier, some narrow doorway, some difficult passage that very few, perhaps none, ever manage to get through. Picture, if you will, a long hallway stretching out before you in the dark, a hallway with many doors along its length, each door leading closer to the next, each one needing to be opened before you can reach the one beyond it. The first door might be the simple beginning of life itself, the first fragile spark of chemistry, organizing itself into something that can grow and reproduce. The next, door, might be the leap from simple, single-celled life to something more complex, life with specialized parts working together. Further down the hallway, another door might represent the emergence of true intelligence, of minds capable of wondering about themselves the way you are wondering right now. And further still, a door representing technology, civilization, the ability to look outward and dream of reaching other worlds. The Great Filter is the idea that somewhere along that hallway, behind one of those doors, lies a barrier so difficult, so narrow, so nearly impossible to pass through, that almost nothing that starts the journey ever makes it to the other side. And the truly unsettling part of this idea, the part we will sit with gently rather than rush past, is that we do not yet know which door holds the filter. We do not know if it lies somewhere behind us, in our own deep past, a door we have already, somehow miraculously passed through, or if it lies somewhere ahead of us, still waiting, a door we have not yet reached, a door that every other civilization in the galaxy's long history may have walked up to and found, quietly, impossibly, locked. Think for a moment about how unlikely your own existence really is. Right now, lying here, breathing slowly, eyes drifting closed, billions of years of chemistry had to unfold in just the right way. A single molecule, somewhere in the ancient warm waters of early Earth, had to stumble into a shape that could copy itself again and again, with just enough imperfection to allow change, to allow evolution, to allow the impossibly long, patient climb from simple replication to the complicated, wondering creature you are tonight. Every single one of your ancestors, stretching back across billions of years, across countless near misses and narrow escapes, survived long enough to pass life onward to the next link in the chain. That chain, unbroken across all that time, all that danger, all that uncertainty, led eventually, gently, to you, here, now, asking questions about the stars. Some scientists look at that chain and wonder if perhaps the rarest, most difficult step of all has already happened, somewhere far behind us, hidden in the deep mists of early Earth's history. Perhaps the leap from simple chemistry to true, self-replicating life is so staggeringly unlikely that it has only happened once in the entire observable universe. Here, on this one quiet blue world, circling this one ordinary yellow star. If that is true, then the silence we hear when we listen to the stars is not a warning at all. It is simply a kind of lonely good fortune, the silence of a universe still waiting, patiently, for someone else to be as lucky as we were. Too much silence for so vast a sky, but perhaps, just perhaps, a silence that means we are simply early, simply rare, rather than simply doomed. There is something gentle in that possibility, something almost peaceful, the idea that we might be early, arrivals at a party that will eventually, slowly, over millions of years yet to come, begin to fill with other guests. Picture yourself arriving at a grand hall long before anyone else has gotten there, the lights just being turned on, the music just being tuned, the food just being set out on long tables. It would feel strange to stand there alone for a while, but it would not necessarily mean no one else was coming. It might simply mean you arrived early, ahead of the crowd, the first to see. The room before it fills. But there is another possibility too, quieter, heavier, one that asks us to look not behind us but ahead, down that long hallway of doors we spoke of a few moments ago. And that is the thought we will carry gently into the next part of our journey together, the thought of what might be waiting beyond the doors we have not yet opened. For now, though, let your mind rest. Let the weight of these big questions settle the way a heavy blanket settles, comforting rather than crushing, simply there, simply present, simply something you can feel without needing to lift it yet. Think again of that beach of stars, stretching out farther than you could ever walk, grain after grain after grain of light scattered across the dark. And think of how strange it is that out of all those countless grains, only one, as far as we know, ever learned to look up and ask why the sky is so quiet. Perhaps you are the only proof in the entire universe right now, in this exact moment, that the silence has not always meant absence. Perhaps, somewhere out among all that scattered light, another mind on another world, circling another sun, is lying just as still as you are, looking up at their own version of this same dark sky, wondering the very same question. Too much silence for so vast a sky, and yet here you both are, each one wondering, each one quietly hoping that somewhere, someone else is wondering too. We are going to keep walking down that long, dim hallway, together, opening doors slowly, one at a time, feeling carefully along the walls in the dark to understand which barriers lie behind us, already passed, and which barriers might still be waiting somewhere ahead, patient, silent, unmoved by all the civilizations that may have walked this same hallway before us and never found their way through. But before we step Consider, for a moment, just how patient the search for other voices has actually been. For more than 60 years now, scientists have been pointing enormous dish-shaped antennas toward the heavens, listening for anything that might sound less like the random hiss of stars and more like the deliberate, structured signal of someone trying to be heard. Think of those great dishes the way you might think of an ear cupped against a wall, straining to catch the faint murmur of conversation in a room far away. Night after night, year after year, those patient ears have listened, sweeping slowly across different frequencies, different patches of sky, hoping to catch even a single syllable of something that isn't simply the universe breathing in its usual wordless way. And mostly, what they have found is static. Beautiful, complicated, endlessly varied static. The crackle of distant stars being born and dying. The faint afterglow of the universe's own birth still humming in the background like the last fading note of a bell struck billions of years ago. But no voices. No clear, unmistakable hello. Just the long, soft hiss of an empty line, the way a phone might sound after you have dialed a number and let it ring and ring without anyone ever picking up. Too much silence for so vast a sky. Here is a gentle thought to hold on to, though, something that might ease the weight of all that listening and hearing nothing back. Even our own civilization here on Earth has only been loud enough to be heard across interstellar distances for a tiny sliver of time, perhaps a century or so, since the first radio waves began leaking out from our towers and antennas, drifting outward in every direction at the speed of light like ripples spreading from a stone dropped into a still pond. If you imagine those ripples as a thin, faint bubble of sound expanding outward from Earth, that bubble has only grown to be about 100 light years wide so far, a single, modest sphere lost inside a galaxy that stretches over 100,000 light years from one edge to the other. We are, in a very real sense, still whispering, our voice barely beginning to travel beyond our own street, let alone our own town. Picture the galaxy as a city so large that walking from one side to the other would take 100,000 years at the speed of light itself, the fastest anything can travel. Now, picture our own small radio whisper, barely a century old, as a single voice calling out from one quiet apartment somewhere near the edge of that enormous city. Even if someone in a neighborhood 1,000 years away happened to be listening at exactly the right moment, our voice has not yet reached them. It is still traveling, still spreading outward, patient and slow, the way sound takes time to cross even a single room, let alone an entire galaxy. Perhaps the silence we hear is simply the silence of distance, the silence of a city so vast that even a shout takes centuries to reach the next street over. And yet, even with that comforting thought held gently in one hand, the deeper question remains held in the other, and it is worth turning over slowly here in the dark. Because the search for life is not only about listening for voices, it is also about looking for footprints, for evidence of expansion, for the kind of large-scale changes a truly old, truly advanced civilization might leave written across the galaxy simply by existing for a very long time. Think about how thoroughly human beings have reshaped the surface of our own small planet in just 8,000 years of civilization. Forests, damming rivers, lighting up the night side of the Earth with countless small points of electric light that are themselves visible from space. Now imagine a civilization not thousands but millions of years old. A civilization with all that extra time to expand, to build, to spread outward among the stars. the way roots spread slowly through soil, season after season, year after year, reaching further with each passing cycle. If such a civilization existed anywhere in our galaxy, even just one, even just a single ambitious species among the hundreds of billions of stars, it seems reasonable to expect that we might see some trace of them by now. A strange dimming of starlight as something enormous orbits a distant sun. An unusual pattern of heat radiating from a system that should, by all rights, look like every other quiet, lifeless star nearby. Some signature, some footprint, some small imperfection in the vast, smooth blankness of space that whispers someone built something here. And yet, when astronomers search for exactly these kinds of clues, scanning star after star after star, they find almost nothing out of the ordinary. Just star after star, behaving exactly the way physics says an ordinary, lifeless star should behave. Too much silence for so vast a sky. Think, too, about how differently this silence might feel depending on which way you choose to look at it. From one angle, it can feel a little lonely, the way an empty house can feel lonely after everyone else has gone out for the evening, the rooms a little too quiet, the hallways a little too still. But from another angle, the very same silence can feel almost sacred, almost precious, the way the hush of a library can feel precious, full not of absence but of potential, full of all the stories that have not yet been written, all the voices that have not yet spoken but might, someday, if given enough time. Perhaps the silence of the universe is less like an empty room and more like a library just before opening, shelves already lined with books, lights not yet turned on, waiting patiently for the doors to open and the first quiet footsteps to begin exploring. There is a kind of comfort, too, in remembering just how young our own search really is, set against the almost incomprehensible age of the universe itself. The universe has existed for nearly 14 billion years. Our own sun and Earth are less than 5 billion years old, meaning the universe was already 9 billion years old, more than half its current age, before our own little corner of it even began to form. And human beings, with our radio dishes and our patient listening, have only been paying close attention to the sky in this particular way for the smallest sliver of time imaginable. A few decades pressed against billions of years, like a single grain of sand pressed against that entire endless beach we imagined earlier. If you picture all of cosmic history as a single calendar year, with the universe's birth happening at the very first moment of January 1st, and this very night, right now, falling at the very last second of December 31st, then everything human beings have ever done, every word ever spoken, every star ever named, every radio signal ever sent outward into the dark, would fit into the final few seconds before midnight. Our entire civilization, our entire history of looking upward and wondering, is barely a flicker against a backdrop so vast it can hardly be measured in any unit that feels human at all. Perhaps it is simply too early in the story for us to expect an answer yet. Perhaps the silence tonight is not a final answer, but only the hush before a much longer conversation that has not yet had the chance to begin. And yet, even as we hold these gentle, hopeful possibilities, the original question keeps returning, soft and patient, the way a familiar melody returns to you even when you are trying to think of something else entirely. Where is everybody? If the universe truly has had enough time, enough worlds, enough warm water and patient chemistry to fill itself with voices many times over, why, when we listen so carefully, does the silence remain so complete? Perhaps the answer is simply distance and time, and the vast, patient slowness of light itself, still carrying our whispers outward, still waiting for someone else's whispers to reach us in return. Or perhaps, gently, quietly, there is something more difficult standing in the way, something we have not yet considered, something waiting further down that long hallway of doors we spoke of earlier. Too much silence for so vast a sky, and somewhere inside that silence, an answer is waiting too, patient as starlight, in no hurry at all to be found tonight. Let that settle, slow and heavy, like sand sinking gently to the bottom of still water. It is not that the numbers are unkind to the idea of company in the universe. By almost every honest calculation, the numbers seem to favor it, seem to expect it, the way you might expect rain after watching dark clouds gather for hours over a still afternoon. And yet the sky remains clear, in its own strange way, untouched by anything but our own quiet reflection staring back at us in the dark glass of space. Too much silence for so vast a sky, and the deeper we look into why that might be true, the more the question seems to split into two very different shapes, two very different kinds of answers, each one sitting on a different side of a long, dim hallway lined with doors. On one side of that hallway sits a kind of answer that feels almost gentle once you let it settle. The idea that life itself, true life, the kind that can copy itself and grow and one day wonder about the stars, might simply be staggeringly rare, kind of cosmic accident, so unlikely that it may have only happened here, on this one quiet world, among all those hundreds of billions of grains of sand scattered across the beach of the galaxy. If that is true, then we are not facing some terrible danger waiting ahead of us. We are simply early, simply fortunate, simply the first quiet candle lit in a house that will, given enough centuries, eventually fill with other small flickering lights of its own. Let's begin with the door nearest to us. The very first one in that long hallway, the door marking the beginning of life itself. Here on Earth, the best evidence available suggests that life appeared remarkably early, almost as soon as the young planet had cooled enough to hold liquid water at all, something less than 500 million years after Earth itself first formed. Think about how strange that timing really is. A newborn planet, barely finished forming, its surface still settling, its oceans still young, and already, somewhere in those warm, shallow waters, something stirs that can copy itself. It is almost as if life were eager, as if the universe, given even the smallest opening, the smallest comfortable crack of warmth and water, rushes in to fill it the way water rushes to fill any space it is given. This quick beginning is, in its own quiet way, a kind of comfort. If the first spark of life took billions of years to occur even under perfect conditions, we might reasonably worry that it is staggeringly rare, that Earth simply won that lottery by enormous, improbable luck. But because life appeared so early here, so readily, many scientists lean toward a gentler conclusion, the thought that the first door in our hallway, the door of life's beginning, might actually swing open fairly easily across the universe, the way a well-oiled hinge moves without much resistance at all. Wherever there is warmth and water and the simple raw ingredients of carbon and hydrogen, life may begin again and again, quietly, all across that endless beach of stars. But here is where the hallway grows more complicated, more interesting, and a little heavier to walk through. Because even though life on Earth began quickly, it then seemed to sit still, almost motionless, for an extraordinarily long stretch of time. For nearly 2 billion years, more than a third of the entire age of the universe, life on Earth remained almost entirely simple. Single, small cells drifting through ancient oceans, repeating themselves, surviving, but never becoming anything more complex than that. Picture 2 billion years the way you might picture an enormous dim room that you must walk all the way across in complete darkness, feeling along the walls, taking one slow step after another, with no way of knowing how much further the room extends. It was only after that long, patient stretch of near stillness that something remarkable happened. A leap scientists still do not fully understand. The appearance of a new kind of cell, one with a more organized interior, a small structure inside it gathering and folding its genetic material the way a hand might gather loose thread into a careful, manageable shape. This new kind of cell, called a eukaryotic cell, turned out to be the foundation for nearly everything complex that came afterward. Every plant, every animal, every creature with more than one kind of cell working together, including, eventually, you, lying here tonight, breathing slowly in the dark. What makes this particular door in the hallway so quietly unsettling when you sit with it for a while is how rare this kind of leap appears to be. As far as scientists can tell, this particular transformation, simple cells becoming the more complex kind, may have only happened once in the entire 4 billion year history of life on Earth. Once. A single successful crossing, after which everything else, every later branch of complexity, grew outward from that one narrow doorway. Imagine an enormous river. Delta. Countless streams branching outward in every direction, lush and green and full of separate paths, and then tracing all of them backward, patiently, only to discover that every single one of those countless branches eventually narrows down to one single original source, one slender stream that almost didn't happen at all. Let your breathing slow here for a moment, the way it naturally does when something large and quiet settles over you. There is no need to feel unsettled by this, only curious, only thoughtful, the way you might feel thoughtful staring at an old photograph of yourself as a child, aware of just how many small, ordinary moments had to unfold in just the right order to lead to this particular night, this particular you, lying here now, listening. If that single narrow crossing, simple cells becoming complex ones, really is as rare as it appears to be here on Earth, then it becomes a strong candidate for one of the great filters hiding somewhere in our hallway. A doctor that might be extraordinarily difficult to pass through anywhere in the universe.
Liftoff of the Delta rocket carrying blast, a gamma-ray telescope searching for unseen physics in the stars of the galaxies.
In that gentle, somewhat hopeful version of the story, the universe might actually be teeming, quietly with simple life, oceans full of microbes on world after world after world, all of them stuck, patiently, endlessly, on the near side of that same narrow door, never quite finding their way through to anything more complex. Too much silence for so vast a sky, perhaps because most of that sky, however alive it might be in some small, simple way, never learns to become anything more
Liftoff
than
of
that.
the Delta
There is
rocket carrying
something almost
blast,
tender
a
in
gamma-ray
imagining
telescope
that,
searching for
isn't
unseen
there?
physics
Not
in
a
the
universe
stars
empty
of the
of
galaxies.
life, but a universe quietly, endlessly full of small, patient, unremarkable life, drifting in still oceans on countless worlds, asking no questions, building no telescopes, simply existing, the way moss exists on a forgotten stone, content, ancient and silent in its own particular way. Picture, for a moment, a vast and ancient forest at night, the kind with no clear edges, stretching outward farther than any map could show. In a forest like that,
ignition and liftoff of Ares 1X, testing concepts for the future of new rocket design.
Dangerous. That a careless call into the darkness might just as easily attract something larger and hungrier as it might attract a friendly. Answer. So the forest grows quiet, not because it is empty, but because everything wise enough to have survived this long has also learned the gentle, patient art of moving softly, of listening far more than speaking, of staying very still whenever uncertain ears might be listening back. Some scientists wonder whether the galaxy might resemble that same kind of ancient, careful forest. Not silent because it is empty, but silent because every voice old enough to understand the risks has quietly learned to whisper rather than shout. There is something both unsettling and strangely soothing in that image, the way certain ideas can hold two feelings at once without contradiction. Unsettling, because it suggests caution rather than openness as the wiser, more common path for any civilization old enough to understand the size of the dark surrounding it. Soothing, because it does not require imagining that we are truly alone, only that we might simply be young and loud in a forest full of older, quieter neighbors who have not yet decided whether our particular kind of noise, our radio waves and our restless curiosity, sounds like a friend or like something else entirely. Too much silence for so vast a sky, perhaps in part because silence out among the stars may simply be the older, safer habit. Consider, for instance, a particular kind of close call that happened not so very long ago in the autumn of 1962, during a tense standoff between two of the most powerful nations on Earth,
8,
each one
7,
holding enough
6,
nuclear weapons
5,
to
we have to
reshape
go
the
for radio
climate
start,
of the entire
2, 1,
times over.
0,
For nearly
booster
2
ignition,
weeks,
and
the
liftoff
world
of Shuttle
stood
Endeavour,
unusually
NASA's
close to
final
a
space
kind of
station crew
door
compartment
it had never
that brings a bay
opened
window view to our celestial
a
backyard.
door that, had it swung open even slightly, might have ended the long, patient story of human civilization in a single, terrible afternoon. The door did not open. Quiet diplomacy, careful restraint, and perhaps a measure of simple good fortune kept it closed. And the moment passed, fading slowly into history the way most close calls eventually do, remembered mostly by historians rather than felt day to day by people going about their ordinary lives. There is another quiet story worth knowing, gentler in its telling but just as significant in what it reveals. 2 decades later, in the deep, automated hours of a September night, a single officer monitoring an early warning system in a quiet command bunker watched his screens report that 5 nuclear missiles had just been launched toward his country. Every protocol, every piece of his training, told him to report the attack immediately, to set in motion a response that could not easily be undone. Instead, trusting a quiet, careful instinct that the data simply did not feel right, he waited. He chose stillness over urgency. And he was correct. The warning had been a false one, a rare and unlikely glitch in newly installed satellite equipment, sunlight reflecting off high clouds in a way the system had not been trained to recognize. One person's calm patience in one quiet room on one ordinary night may have been the only thing standing between the world as you know it and a door that almost opened. Let these stories settle gently rather than heavily. They are not meant to frighten you tonight, only to illustrate softly the particular nature of the door we are now standing in front of together. It is a door that asks whether a civilization capable of building such powerful tools can also build, alongside them, the wisdom, the patience, and the careful restraint needed to hold that power without it slipping from its hands. Some nights, it seems, that restraint holds. Other nights, by the narrowest of margins, by the quiet judgment of a single careful person, it very nearly does not. Here is the second quiet question worth turning over tonight. Slow and unhurried, like a leaf drifting across still water. If every civilization in the universe that reaches a certain level of technological power faces a similar narrow door, a similar test of patience against power, how many of them, do you think, manage to pass through safely? And how many, instead, quietly, somewhere far across the galaxy, perhaps even more than once, do not? There is no need to answer that tonight either. Simply let it rest beside the first question. Two smooth stones gathered now instead of one, both held gently, neither one urgent to solve before sleep finally arrives. It is not only nuclear weapons that scientists consider when they think about this particular door in the hallway, though they are often the easiest example to picture, the most dramatic, the most immediately understandable. There are quieter dangers too, slower ones, the kind that do not arrive in a single terrible afternoon, but instead accumulate gradually, the way a small leak in a roof, ignored for long enough, eventually becomes something far more serious. Changes to a planet's climate, brought about by the very same industry and energy that allow a civilization to grow large and complex in the first place. Changes to the delicate balance of ecosystems that quietly support every other layer of civilization above them. The way the foundation of a house quietly supports everything built upon it, rarely noticed until something begins to crack. And, more recently still, scientists have begun to wonder about an entirely different kind of door, one that did not even exist as a meaningful question a single human lifetime ago. The door of artificial minds, machines built to think, to learn, to make decisions increasingly without direct human guidance. Nobody yet knows what lies behind that particular door, whether it leads, gently, to a future where such minds become careful, trusted partners in civilization's long climb, or whether it leads somewhere narrower, somewhere harder to predict, the way any sufficiently new kind of power tends to be hardest to judge clearly from the very beginning, before enough time has passed to understand its full shape. There is a photograph, taken many years ago now, by a small spacecraft already leaving our solar system behind, that shows something worth picturing here in the dark. At the request of scientists curious about how Earth might look from that enormous distance, the spacecraft turned its camera backward, toward home, and captured a single, faint point of light suspended in a wide band of scattered sunlight, almost lost entirely in the glare, barely more than a single pale speck against the vast black of space. That speck was Earth. Every person who has ever lived, every war ever fought, every quiet bedtime story ever told, every single night like this one, contained within that one small, pale, easily overlooked point of light. Picture that photograph now, the way you might picture a single grain of dust caught for a moment in a beam of afternoon sunlight, there and then almost gone, easy to miss entirely if you were not looking carefully. From far enough away, even the largest things, the loudest wars, the proudest empires, the most urgent headlines, shrink down into something almost too small to notice. And yet, somehow, lying here tonight, inside that same small pale point of light, you're still capable of looking outward, of wondering, of holding questions large enough to stretch across billions of years and trillions of miles. There's something quietly remarkable in that, the way an entire ocean can somehow be reflected in a single drop of water. Consider, too, another kind of photograph, this one taken not by looking outward from Earth, but by holding a powerful telescope perfectly still, for many patient hours, pointed at what looked, to ordinary eyes, like an empty patch of night sky, a small, dark, seemingly featureless gap between visible stars. When astronomers finally examined what that long, patient exposure had gathered, the empty patch turned out not to be empty at all. It was filled, edge to edge, with thousands of distant galaxies, each one its own island of hundreds of billions of stars, layered backward into the dark farther than the eye could ever hope to resolve unaided. A single, unremarkable corner of sky, no larger, from where you stand, than a grain of sand held at arm's length, contained more galaxies than most people could count in an entire lifetime of trying. Let that settle for a moment, slow and wide, the way fog settles low over still water at dawn. Every direction you might choose to look, every small, unremarkable patch of darkness scattered across the sky above you tonight, likely hides a similar depth, a similar abundance. Thousands of galaxies tucked quietly behind what looks, to tired eyes, drifting towards sleep, like simple empty black. The universe, it turns out, is rarely as empty as it first appears. The silence we have been speaking of tonight is not the silence of nothing being there. It is the silence of something vast, layered, and almost incomprehensibly distant, choosing, for now, simply not to speak. Consider, for a moment, what it might mean to think of yourself not simply as a person looking up at the universe, separate from it, peering in from somewhere outside, but instead as a small temporary place where the universe itself has folded inward enough to begin noticing its own existence. The atoms that make up your slowly breathing body were forged, long ago, inside the hearts of stars that lived and died, billions of years before our sun ever began to form, scattered outward across the galaxy in great, quiet explosions, drifting for ages through cold, dark space before eventually, slowly, gathering into the dust that became this planet and then into the long chain of life that eventually became you. In a very real sense, the same matter that built distant stars is now lying here in the dark, wondering about distant stars. The universe, in its own roundabout, patient way, is simply looking at itself. If that is true, even just a little, then the silence above you tonight is not entirely silent at all. It is filled, quietly, with this one small, persistent fact, that somewhere within all that vastness, matter has organized itself carefully enough, narrowly enough, patiently enough to become aware, to ask questions, to lie still in the dark and wonder why the rest of the universe seems so quiet in return. That awareness, fragile as it is, rare as it appears to be, is not nothing. It may, in fact, be the single rarest and most remarkable thing the universe has ever managed to produce, rarer than any star, rarer than any galaxy, rarer even than life itself. There is an old, gentle kind of comfort available in feeling small against something this large, the same comfort you might feel standing at the edge of an enormous, quiet ocean at night, aware of how little space your own body actually occupies against all that dark, moving water, and yet somehow not frightened by it. Simply humbled, simply quieted, simply reminded that you are part of something far larger than the small, busy concerns that usually fill your days. Smallness, looked at the right way, is not a diminishment. It is instead a kind of release, a permission to set down the heavy, urgent feeling that everything depends entirely on you, and to rest instead inside the much larger, much slower story that has been unfolding for billions of years before you arrived, and will keep unfolding, gently, for billions of years after you are gone. That is not a sad thought, even though it might sound like one at first. It is, instead, one of the kindest thoughts the universe has to offer, if you let it settle the right way. You do not have to solve the silence tonight. You do not have to determine, before sleep finally takes you, whether the great filter lies behind humanity or ahead of it, whether life is common or rare, whether the galaxy is truly empty or simply quiet on purpose. You only have to do what you have already been doing this whole time, this entire long, slow night together. You only have to notice. You only have to wonder. You only have to lie still, here, now, and let the question be enough, exactly as it is, unfinished, unresolved, and entirely, peacefully, yours to carry gently into sleep. There is one last image worth letting rest in your mind now, soft and slow, before words themselves begin to lose their shape the way they always do at the very edge of sleep. Picture the whole of tonight's journey, the beach of stars, the long hallway, the careful officer, the ancient forest, the pale dot, the patch of sky crowded with galaxies, all of it gathered now into a single, small, quiet point of light, the way 1,000 scattered candles might finally be gathered into one steady flame. That single flame is simply this: you, here, now, breathing slowly, wondering gently. One small, warm, patient light in an enormous, patient dark. That is enough. That has always, quietly, been enough. Wherever you happen to drift off tonight, whatever quiet dream eventually carries you the rest of the way, know that the sky will still be there when you wake. Exactly as patient, exactly as vast, exactly as quietly full of unanswered questions as it was tonight. There is no need to finish wondering before you sleep. The universe has never once required an answer by morning. It has only ever asked gently, patiently, across 14 billion years, for someone, somewhere, to keep noticing. Tonight, you did. That is enough. Rest now, and let the rest of the wondering wait quietly for another night. Let this be the last clear thought before sleep finally, fully arrives. Somewhere above you, the same stars that have watched over every quiet night in human history are still quietly turning, indifferent and beautiful, asking nothing of you except, perhaps, that you rest well. Too much silence for so vast a sky, and within that silence, somehow tonight, enough peace to carry you gently the rest of the way into sleep. Rest now. There is nothing left to carry but the soft, slow rhythm of your own breathing, and even that, before long, will fade quietly into dreams. Sleep now, beneath a sky that has been quiet for longer than you can imagine, and yet somehow, tonight, did not feel empty at all. Sleep now, carried gently by the same vast patience that has carried stars across billions of years, that has carried life through narrow doorway after narrow doorway that has carried you, quietly, safely, all the way to this exact, soft, unhurried moment. The silence above you is not an ending. It is simply a long, slow breath the universe is still in the middle of taking. Let yours slow to match it now. One final time, in and out, in and out. Soft as starlight, patient as the dark. Good night then, for now, beneath a sky that may, after everything we have wondered about together tonight, be far less empty than it first appeared. Sleep well. Rest now, gently, completely, beneath the patient stars.